Good evening and thanks for joining us on Hotline Live, brought to you in association with NordVPN. I'm Fraser Wilson, standing in for our regular hosts Daniel and Jacko, but I'm delighted to say we've got a regular on with us all the way from the Czech Republic, where Rangers have just slipped to one of the all-time most embarrassing results in Europe ever. A penalty kicks defeat to Czech minnows Jablonec has seen Rangers' involvement in European football for this season end early. Scott, you were over there, you've just seen it firsthand. This is going to be a slightly shorter episode because I know you've got to dash downstairs and do post-match media duties, but just give us your immediate thoughts on that disaster.
I think it's been off. The embarrassing Euro exit for Rangers, the second Euro exit campaign so far. This is a major low point for Rangers, major low point for Derek McDermott so early in his Rangers managerial tenure. But the goal that he deserved tonight, Fraser, failed to turn up for the game. There was a 1-0 lead to Ibrox. This place isn't intimidating, it's not a difficult place to play football. There's only 5,000 or 6,000 supporters in this ground. Rangers should have had more than enough to get through this tie. But they were difficult to know where to start. Fraser, I mean, they're fairly tested the Jablonec keeper all night. At one point in the second half, we tallied 11 touches in the opposition box, which is abysmal. Can't remember them creating a gilt-edged chance in the game, and they always look pretty vulnerable to a counter-attack. And Jablonec's got a goal out 17 minutes, getting an equaliser in the tie. And you thought then that might give, might choke Rangers into action, but then they kind of tried everything. He made 3 changes at half time. Fraser, he made more from then on in. At one point, young Finlay Curtis, who came on as a sub, and eventually missed one of the penalties. He's distraught at the end. He played 4 different positions for Rangers in that game. And that amount of changes, system changes, formation changes, position changes, I don't think that helped Rangers, but it's kind of summed up Derek McInnes's start of his Rangers career. And as I said at the start, this is a major low point. Fans who are travelling here aren't happy at all, and I think serious questions are going to be asked the manager and of these players.
Scotty, the background noise drowned out a bit, so we lost your touch there. Look, no, for the first time this season, there seemed to be a complete lack of quality on the ball, lack of ideas, a lack of style. Fans, as you see the comments coming in there, are starting to ask serious questions of Derek McInnes. Where does this leave the manager now?
I think it leaves him under pressure. As if he was under pressure already, just by taking the Rangers job, it's been a really poor start for him. There's no getting away from that. Failure to win his first 2 Premiership games is always going to heat pressure. Losing in the Europa League playoff to Jablonec was bad enough, but this defeat the conference playoff, giving Rangers no group stage football at all this season, it puts the manager under serious pressure. And the club are spending big money. They've just signed Kim Min-soo, £8.5 million. Get Kevin Kelsey to come in the next few days for £9 million. Serious money's been spent, and yet this team doesn't look any better. You said it yourself, real lack of quality and possession. I've rarely seen a Rangers team turn the ball over so often in a game, and ultimately they've paid the price. And the confidence levels of these players now for us will be through the floor, and they need to go to Picard. They've just had extra time, and they need to go to Picard for a really tough Premiership game on Sunday. And if Derek McInnes doesn't get a result in that one against one of his former clubs, that pressure we're talking about will just crank up no end.
I know you're desperate to get downstairs, Scotty. Just one quick one. You mentioned the new signings there. It's a staggering amount of money that's been spent in this squad for them only to look like they're going backwards. Is the squad too bloated now? Is that becoming a problem? They've got such a big number of players in that squad.
It is bloated, and no doubt we'll try and trim it before the transfer window closes. But the big worry is that they've spent serious money on players who don't look capable of playing for Rangers. They don't look capable of stepping up and taking on the responsibility of playing for a club like Rangers. And I don't like to pick on individuals, but I mean, Ryan Nadiri, £5 million striker tonight, We'll struggle to hold the ball up, leave the ball away so many times, never look dangerous in front of goal. Look at Totti Tukwari, who was signed in January, £4.5 million. Again, played in 2 or 3 different positions tonight, never influenced the game, never impacted the game. That's just not good enough for the fees that Rangers are paying out for these players. Your quota as well, £3.5 million winger, hooked again at half time tonight. Dan Neil, who was captain, signed in the summer, supposed to be coming in to be a real leader at Rangers, hooked at half time again after another ineffective performance. Rangers are nowhere near good enough, just they're miles off where Derek McInnes wants them to be, and it's a major worry for these supporters so early in the season.
It's a complete mess, Scott. That was a really excruciating night again for Scottish football. That result. I know you need to get downstairs, pal, so you take yourself off and see what Derek McInnes has got to say, and we'll look forward to reading that in Record Sport in the next hour or so. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Scott McDermott there in Jablonec. Thanks very much to Scott. And as I said there, stick with the dailyrecord.co.uk for all of Scott and our fellow colleague Andy Newport's reaction from Derek McInnes to that woeful night in Czechia. There's another full-time result coming in involving the Scottish side on the continent, and it's more bad news, I'm afraid, certainly for Motherwell fans. The Steelmen were facing an uphill battle as it was in Freiburg, having lost the first leg of their Conference League playoff 3-1 in Lanarkshire last week, but it's ended in another defeat over in Germany. An early goal for Derry Sherhant effectively killed the tie, but well fought back to level through Emmanuel Longelo, only to then lose new signing Jake Girdwood-Reich to a red card. That kind of opened the door, I suppose, for the Bundesliga side to put their foot down, and they put the tie to bed with further goals from Igor Matanovic, Siriakere and Keisuke Goto for a 4-1 win on the night and a 7-2 aggregate victory. But no disgrace for the Steelmen, who have done very well in Europe to get to that stage. Thankfully, there was better news in Vienna last night, though, as Hearts produced heroics to fight back from a goal down and a man down to beat Rapid Vienna in penalty kicks and book their spot in the £5 million Conference League group stage. It was a night for the ages for the Jambos in the Alliance Stadion as Wouter Rankin's side continue to improve. Earlier on, I caught up with Record Sport's resident jam tart Ross Pilcher to look back at a night that will go down in history in Gorgie. Oh, Ross. Oh, Vienna. Mate, wow. I was lucky enough to be in the Alliance Stadion last night, and the scenes at the end just summed up what an absolutely momentous night and result that was for Hearts. You know, you've got Wouter Rankin showing that he's still got a burst of pace, isn't he? But coming off this, exploding off the sidelines after Borus's decisive penalty save. But my favourite...
That's in a pair of chinos as well.
Well, aye. Well, speaking of chinos and tight jeans, my favourite bit was the media man Phil, your pal Phil, bursting out of nowhere onto the pitch and launching a ball into orbit. It was so good. The joy that poured out of the Hearts backroom team and players was it just summed up what an incredible moment it was. A huge night for the club. The way they did it, coming back from losing from being a goal down, from being a man down, to level, go into extra time, take the lead, then lose a heartbreaking last-minute goal. I think at that point, the vast majority of us thought the worst. But then to go on and win the penalty shootout, I mean, Hearts were like walking wounded for most of that extra 30 minutes extra time. Calvin Miller basically limped his way through the whole half hour and then still managed to come up with a worldie. It was just an incredible evening, mate. I mean, proper heroic stuff. What was your take on it? You're a big Jambo, right? I think we all know that. It's safe enough to put that out there. How was it for you?
You talked about the scenes at the end there. I think that's maybe a culmination that everything that's kind of happened to the club since the end of last season, the way not only losing league, the way they lost the league, all the upheaval in the summer, new manager coming in, having to start kind of not quite from scratch, but he was kind of left a lot of bits and pieces to pick up and put a squad together, get a new style of play embedded in, and then you're straight into Champions League qualifiers early with no a lot of friendlies behind them, and it was tough. They've not had a lot of luck since the end of last season. The draws they got, I think Sturm Graz, if they played them now, it'd probably be a different game because they'd be about 6 weeks on in their preparation, and then to go out there and then you draw. I think Benfica were I think I'm right in saying they're the highest ranked teams of all the qualifiers across 3 competitions, which was just ridiculous.
What were they doing in Europa League qualifiers?
Oh, it's nuts, isn't it? It's nuts. Team that went unbeaten all season last season.
Yeah.
Look about 300 odd million squad, but then Hearts were okay. The tie's gone, but I think that 1-1 draw at Tynecastle gave them a bit of confidence, especially the way they played. They took this into this Rapid Vienna tie. I think you look at last season when Rapid Vienna played Dundee United, that would have given Hearts a wee bit of belief. And when you look at, they finished 5th last season.
Yeah.
And comparative to Sturm Graz, I think Sturm Graz were a better side. You look at Lask were a better side. You saw what they did to Celtic. So I think this one, I always kind of thought it was going to be a bit more even than people were maybe making out. I think you kind of see the name Rapid Vienna. They've been pretty much a staple in European football over the last couple of decades. It seems they're not at the level they once were, and the first leg was pretty even. Hearts, again, like last night, they didn't start well. Then when they stepped up and kind of took the game to Rapid couldn't really live with them. Last night, again, pretty poor first half. I know you spoke to Wouter Rankin afterwards. He wasn't a happy man at half time, but then they stepped it up, and you thought the luck was deserting them again. The referee, you have to say, was bizarre as being kind. Some very, very weird
decisions. Took the word right out of my mouth. That was the way I could not understand some of his decision making.
No, I mean, I don't think Magnussen's first is even a foul. The second is never a second yellow, especially when you look at what he was letting go kind of 5 minutes after. I think Calvin Miller got wiped out. The tackle was far worse. That was, nothing. A pretty clear dive in the box at the other end. Again, nothing. So he was all over the place. But despite that, Hearts stuck to it. And Wouter Rankin was very brave going down to 10 men. Maybe if this game happened last season, they throw in an extra centre-back. I know there was times Hearts finished games with 5 centre-backs. They try and see it out and see what they can nick. But he was brave. He left players up the pitch. They kept pressing and they got rewarded for it. I think a bit of a turning point was that Borchgrevink block about 2 minutes to go where he gets studs on it. It's on the post. You think, okay, they're getting a bit of luck here. You mentioned Calvin.
Celebrated that like a goal. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes in. They're out. So those little things hadn't been happening for them. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't all bad luck. Especially Sturm Graz, their defending wasn't good enough. It's not been great as good as they've been going forward. That'll be something he still needs to work on. But they're getting to extra time, and then when they concede the last kick extra, we think, oh, here we go. But again, regrouped. They've obviously been practicing penalties, and it paid off. Bruce came in a few weeks ago, coming in for Alex Schwalov, who was a good, solid keeper. But I think they've upgraded now, and you saw the value of bringing the big man in. He was excellent.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. What you said there about Rankin at half time, you're right, and he was totally right to be angry at half time. Hearts hadn't come out the blocks for the second week in a row. It wasn't anything particular tactical that he changed. I know he brought in Borchgrevink at left back and moved McCart into centre defence, but it was just a case, I think, of having a bit more belief and getting in about Rapid, get further up the park and get in about them, basically. There was nothing tactical that changed it, but boy, did Hearts change the flow of that game in the second half. It was great to see, and I thought Rankin, you mentioned it there, his substitutions were spot on. Landry Kabore not only scoring that all-important equaliser, but he put in some amount of work as well. Rogers Mato, for me, up and down the left flank, was superb in a defensive effort in extra time. Christian Borchgrevink, great at left back. The Belgian's proven to be a right good appointment, isn't he?
I think so, yeah. I think the fans like what they're seeing. It's not perfect. It was never going to be, and it's still going to take time, but I think they can see why the club went all out to get him, why he was their top choice. From my understanding, he ranked of what they were looking for. And through Jamestown, he ranked about as high as you could in terms of the criteria. Hearts wanted in their new head coach, and you can see what he wants them to do. It's when it clicks, it's very, very difficult to live with. It's they take more risks, but that's what he wants. He said that after Benfica first leg, he said it after last night in terms of the first half. You need to show guts. You need to, don't be afraid to make mistakes. If you're going to do it, go all in. And they got the rewards last night. You mentioned the Rogers Mato substitution. That ended up being inspired when I don't think anyone else probably would have thought to make it. If you need another central midfielder on there, that'll get a bit of pace on there. Him and Calvin Miller have got the legs. They can get up and down. They can go both ways doing a job. And the cross he puts in for Miller's goal was great, and it's a cracking penalty from him as well. And begs a lot of Hearts fans are asking the question, why did this guy only get 14 minutes last season?
Aye, well, look, you mentioned Jamestown there. Tony Bloom was in attendance in the Alliance Stadion last night. He must be loving the thrill ride at Hearts. In comparison to the kind of more mundane stuff down south with Brighton, the Premier League, I know it's all money orientated and bigger, more expensive players, but the thrill he had at Hearts last season, the thrill of last night, I mean, those scenes there, that picture there perfectly sums it up. He must be loving this. His supercomputers delivered 11 new signings this summer. Who's been the pick for you out of those 11 so far? And do you think they need more before the end of the window?
Well, given Tom Renault, I think he's probably been the most impressive in terms of ability for me. He's coming. He's sort of midfielder Hearts probably were crying out for last season. He's good on the ball. He's got good feet. He's got good legs. He can get around. Good energy. He can see a pass. He can shoot. Him going off it, which looks like quite a bad ankle injury. I think they might go in, try and get another central midfielder. I know Lauren Mendy's just come back from fitness last night. Blair Spittle's done well, but there's going to be games where they need a bit more legs and they need more options. Aju's still to come back. We're not entirely sure when he's going to be ready, so maybe then. But I've been really impressed with Tom Renault, and I think he'll be a big miss for them.
That was really sad to see. He looked in some distress when he came off, and he was in a moon boot, as you've probably seen for pictures at full time. But still didn't stop him joining the celebrations. To be fair, you're talking about legs. I think they might struggle against St Johnstone for that on Saturday. He's going to have to use the squad wisely. Without a ranking, but sticking with Euro theme, finally with Hearts, they did make such a mess at this stage 2 years ago in the league phase. Blown qualification to the Minnows Petrol Cup, and what was one of the club's worst Euro results, I'd say. You confident? I know the draws tomorrow. We don't know the 6 teams they'll face yet, but you confident that they can go one better and get into the knockouts?
I think it's a better squad than they had under Neil Critchley 2 years ago, who, let's be honest, was in the wrong movie for the start, and I think it was a matter of if, not when, he was going after that result. I didn't think he was the right man at the time. He eventually proved that. I mean, I'm sure he was a decent guy. Didn't have any dealings with him, but he just never struck me as a Hearts manager. And finishing bottom 6 after a result like that, I think the way they're set up under Wouter Rankin, and obviously he's kind of come in with a different attitude, a different way of looking at things. I think it might suit them in Europe. You can tell they're trying to play more football. They're trying to keep possession, but they're trying to play quickly. They're trying to press high. I think that might suit them pretty well, especially at Tynecastle. But again, it depends on the draw. But if they can get teams, it's fairly similar in terms of the range of levels that they got last time, and you're right, they made an absolute mess of it last time. If they can get themselves into a similar position, I'd fancy them to make the knockouts again. Unless it's if their draws so far to go by, don't take anything for granted. They could get an absolute stinker, but if it's a fairly mix of teams in terms of levels, in terms of pedigree, then I'd see no reason why they shouldn't be aiming for the knockouts.
Yeah, just on sticking with the European theme, I don't know if you saw the Celtic game the other night, but
yeah,
it wasn't just the Hearts players last night that were producing results. I think their social media guy came up with a winner as well, with a naughty little tweet, or he reeled in a few with his comment on X aimed at Celtic. Obviously, Jambos were jubilant in Vienna a day after the Hoops had been left licking their wounds in Linz after taking a leathering off a Lask scene there. I mean, we've not heard your views, Ross, on that cataclysmic collapse. One of the worst results in Celtic's history, do you think?
I think it has to be, given the position they were in. To go 1-0 up, you're 4-0 up with 70 minutes to play. Again, I didn't quite think it was definitely over up until then, because you saw the chances last created at Celtic Park. They could have been 2-3-0 up before Celtic scored. I think Martin O'Neill was wary of that. But then, I don't know, if after the goal, they just seemed to stop doing what you would expect them to do. And it kind of felt like when you saw the way the game went, especially when Lask scored early in the second half, there was a feeling of inevitability about it. I think some of the stats were, so Lask had 60 attempts
across the two ties.
Across the two ties, and at one point
41 the other night, I think 41 shots a goal. That's
I think at one point they'd had the last 21 attempts were all Lasks at one point in the game. So it just shows you Celtic offered, after scoring, they offered nothing going forward, but they didn't make themselves hard to play through. They didn't limit Lask. You didn't really have to they could have scored more. They even able to miss a penalty towards the end, which kind of sums it up. It's an absolute shocker for Celtic against a side who, okay, they've got some good players, they play some good stuff, but when you compare what Celtic, I don't like basing your squad quality on what you've spent, because spending money doesn't always mean you're signing good players. It depends how they fit into your team and everything else, but there's not really much of an excuse for Celtic. It was an absolute howler.
They have. I think they have signed good players. It's just whether they've come in at the right time, early enough. I mean, I don't think I've seen such a dramatic loss of control of a game from a position where, let's be honest, they had a foot and 4 toes in the Champions League, 4-0 up with just over half a game of football to play. To throw that away is incredible. It's been said that this is a multi-level malfunction at Parkhead. The players certainly need to take a good look at themselves at how they threw that game away. Martin O'Neill and his management staff have held their hands up, but the fans will continue to take aim at the board over the level, the level and the timing. As I say, the recruitment this summer. Where does the blame lie for you?
For Tuesday night, I think it's mainly on the coaching staff and the players. Michael Nicholson can't go and keep the ball out of the net. Michael Nicholson can't go and give half-time team talks. I think the big problem is there's no one obviously leading the recruitment. There's not an obvious strategy. Yeah, they've started paying big money this window. They seem to be signing good players on paper, but who's deciding how they fit into this team? Who's planning what's the long-term plan, how they want the Celtic team to look? That's never really been obvious. It seems to be they're trying to do enough to get by to hit their objectives, which is, stay ahead of Rangers last season, Hearts, and make the Champions League. But they've not done that. Was it 6 playoffs in a row they've now lost to get into the group stages? And see a lot of people saying, if they get to the group stages, then they'll start signing. That never really happened before either. So it's just, I think the longer term overall strategy, there's certainly blame to be placed on the board, but in terms of Tuesday night in isolation, that's on the coaching staff and players.
Totally agree. Let's just finish on a positive, mate. All right, you mentioned losing runs in playoffs. Hearts last night, incredibly, became the first Scottish club outside the Old Firm to win a European playoff since the playoff system came in 17 years ago. 17 years ago. 16 straight defeats before Hearts last night. Now, by the time this goes out, as we pre-record, it'll only be Hibs left to play where they take on Ghent at Easter Road. Now, we know we've kind of given the game away that you're a Jambo, Ross, but can Hibs join Hearts in the Conference League phase?
Don't see why not. 0-0 was a good result for them in Belgium. They probably could have come away with a win. Owen Elding's missed a penalty. Hibs tend to do well in these sort of games where they're the underdog. I don't know if people maybe, I have to be honest, I didn't see the game last week. I don't know if people maybe over-egged Ghent's level a little bit, but they won't fancy going to Easter Road. I think they might, they're probably better than they showed last week, but going to a packed Easter Road where they're going to be up for it, they know they have to score. I think this is going to be a difficult night for them. We could see extra time and penalties again, but absolutely no reason why Hibs can't get through. And I think, let's be honest, the way European qualifications looking next season with the coefficient, we need all the help we can get so that, the more the merrier.
100%. Well, let's hope our Eurovision looks a bit brighter by the end of this evening. But for now, Ross, brilliant. Thanks very much for joining us, mate. Ross Pilcher there. And just on that note, it's 12 minutes gone, Easter Road, Hibs and Ghent still locked at 0-0 on the night and on aggregate. So that one is finally in the balance, but plenty of football to be played in Leith yet. That's it. That's it for tonight's slightly shorter Hotline Live, folks. All our colleagues who would love to keep this debate on Rangers' performance this evening going even longer, but all our colleagues are busy working all different corners of Europe this evening. But yes, it's been another brutal night for the Scottish coefficient and another brutal night in particular for Rangers. We can see your comments coming in along the ticker at the bottom after that dreadful night in Jablonec. Exiting on penalties to a side that finished 5th in the Czech League last season. the pressure is certainly increasing on Derek McInnes and his expensively assembled side. So you can catch all the reaction from Derek McInnes on dailyrecord.co.uk this evening. But you'll be pleased to hear that the Jackson and Koss show returns next week with our 2 regular hosts back off their holly bags. Until then, just keep checking dailyrecord.co.uk for all your latest Scottish sport breaking news. Have a great weekend and thanks for joining us.